Support for the Ripple Effects podcast comes from our friends at the U.S. Department of State, the sponsor of the National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange Project with Mobility International USA. Learn more about the Clearinghouse at miusa.org. Welcome to Ripple Effects, Travelers with Disabilities Abroad, a podcast brought to you by Mobility International USA, where we hear the powerful and vivid stories from people with disabilities going abroad and the positive impact these experiences have on shifting ideas for everyone of what is possible. For our first podcast series, we will hear from people who are blind or low vision as part of our Blind Abroad campaign from our National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange Project. We hope the heart of their stories resonates with you, the listeners, to empower more people with disabilities to go abroad. I'm Monica Malhotra, a project coordinator with Mobility International USA and your host for Ripple Effects. So far, we've been hearing from American students who are blind about their study abroad experiences. Now let's get ready to hear from the other side of the ocean. Erdem is a blind student from Turkey who is studying at Stanford University. He's excited to speak about his experience leaving one disability culture and entering another. Hi, Erdem. How are you?
Hi, Monica. Thank you. I am very good.
Well, I'm very happy that you're joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So to begin, can you let us know what brought you to the United States from Turkey?
I study in Koç University in Turkey, in psychology department, and there is a partnership between my university and Stanford University, which is called International Honors Program. And when I hear this program, I really would love to come here and learn different world, different cultures. So I come here as a visiting student.
Oh, good. So what was, you're from Turkey. So as someone who is blind, what was life like growing up in Turkey? And did you have ongoing assistance, like from family members or from your community?
In Turkey, usually you get your assistance from your parents or your friends, your family or your friends. Mm-hmm. And it is very collectivistic culture, actually. You get a lot of help from your parents and your friends. Sometimes it is overprotection.
Mm-hmm. This month actually marks the 25th anniversary for the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and so it's still not too long ago that people who were blind or deaf were actually placed in residential schools for their education. Today, we've come very far from that, but there's still always a lot of work to be done. So I'm interested in knowing what type of schooling and access to education did you have growing up?
It changed nowadays, but before that, usually blind students go to blind schools specific to blind people, and they get education more focused on music, actually. Mm-hmm. And not like in those kind of schools, you don't give a lot of emphasis on math or anything else, which is one of the downsides of those kind of schools. Yeah. Nowadays, we have inclusive educations, and you get the same school, but for two hours a week, you get also rehabilitation.
Okay.
You learn Braille and everything.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, although legally you are supported to go to inclusive classes, the schools with everyone,
Mhm.
some principal doesn't like the idea,
Huh.
and I hear a lot of some friends saying I had very big difficulty to convince the principal to accept me in the school.
Mhm.
You should talk about legal issues, you should talk about ethical issues, but sometimes they don't understand.
Mhm. Yeah, we still see that today as the law can be there, but sometimes making sure it's implemented fully can be challenging.
Exactly.
So, speaking about your kind of coming to the United States, why were you interested in coming to the United States for your honors program?
Actually, I had two big motivations. One is academic motivation, actually, like
Mhm.
going to Stanford, having classes in Stanford is amazing thing.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I want to be like educational psychologist.
Mhm.
So, but in my university there is not a lot of classes about motivation, about learning. But however, here I take, for example, two motivation class, learning class.
Mhm.
And the other motivation, which is I think more important, is that social improvement, personal improvement.
Yeah.
I I haven't been in abroad that long,
Mhm.
so I knew that by going to Stanford, I would improve my social and personal skills a lot, which
Yeah.
I see it's true. It
Mhm.
becomes true.
Mhm. What were some of the assumptions that you heard or that you believed in Turkey about arriving to the U.S. as someone with a disability?
Mostly, we have very positive attitude towards American independence and culture
Mhm.
about disability.
So, what, since, we are talking about of the stereotype that Americans are very independent, did you experience anyone having hesitations to arrive to the U.S. because they kind of feared entering a culture which is too independent from what they're used to?
Exactly. Most of people want to come to US because it is independent, but at the same time, most of my friends had hesitations because they don't feel that they can handle that kind of independence
Mhm.
because they live always with their family and they get at least assistance usually.
Mhm. What did everyone say when you told them that you're coming here?
my friends said that you are very brave.
No.
Like, how will you cope with US culture
Yeah.
in 2 months? But my parents are still very worried.
Mhm.
They always like every day they call me
Uh,
by WhatsApp.
uh-huh.
But I am very lucky with my parents, so they although they are worried, if
Uh-huh.
they know that I really want it and it is beneficial for me, they support me.
We want to take this time to promote our hashtag Blind Abroad campaign, where our aim is to increase awareness to people who are blind or low vision on the benefits of going abroad, with a big thanks to our sponsors at the U.S. Department of State. You can learn more about the hashtag Blind Abroad campaign by going to our website, miusa.org, and also make sure to follow us on Twitter at MobilityINTL and hashtag Blind Abroad. We'd love to see your comments and let others read your messages too. Now kind of transitioning to preparing for your arrival here, did you connect with different organizations or different people with similar disabilities?
I connected with one of my teachers who works with disability, and she knows a lot about American culture, American life.
Mm-hmm.
She is Claire Özel,
Mm-hmm.
and other than that, I talked with Office of Accessible Education in Stanford
Mm-hmm.
in advance than my coming here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. How has it been for you adjusting to life in the U.S. and living more independently for the first time?
Actually, it is very nice. Like feeling independent is very good and nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in Turkey, you can live independent as well,
Mm-hmm.
but like you have a lot of friends, a lot of people who is ready to help you.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to say them, no, I can live. I don't need help.
Mm-hmm.
Although, like you know that they are ready for you,
Mm-hmm.
and it is very hard to resist this
Yeah.
temptation. In US, in contrary, you should ask if you need help.
Mm-hmm.
In Turkey, you should ask if you don't need help.
And do you find any difficulty asking for help?
Like if you are in Turkey, people would understand that you need help because you are not very sure.
Yeah.
But in I assume that in US they will understand as well,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You should ask explicitly,
Mm-hmm.
but I understand that. Then now I don't have a lot of difficulty to ask questions.
Good. What are some of the challenges or attitudes you did face at home as someone who is blind, and maybe how you think that's different from your experience here in the United States?
Mm-hmm. In Turkey, usually disability is seen as like very, very terrible thing. So people would ask you, "Oh, are you blaming someone, or do you feel very bad? Do you wish to have a vision?" But in US, I think people see disability as difference. So I didn't see any comment like, did you try to have operation to have vision, or some similar comments like you are are you blaming God or something.
Yeah. You heard that in Turkey sometimes?
Yeah. Like in Turkey, usually people say, okay, are you blaming people, or do you blame God, or are you regretful? Do you wish having vision? Like it is seen as very terrible thing to avoid.
Yeah, that's a difference in the U.S. where, rather than, being seen with pity, there's more pride in someone's disability. So, it's not about fixing something, but it's just about being included in everything and being proud of that just being one part of them. And what would you say is your favorite memory so far in the U.S.? I can think of something that I know that you did, but I'm not sure if that's your favorite memory.
Yeah, I have a lot of favorites, but I think surfing, as you can assume, is my one of the favorites.
Yeah.
Like especially when I was able to stood up once. Yeah, it
On
was
the
very amazing.
good. That's awesome.
Especially if most of people couldn't stand up.
Even if they were sighted.
Yeah.
Great. How do you think this experience so far has changed you? What have you learned about yourself, you think, from this experience so far, coming all the way over here and doing this on your own?
I saw I believe that change will be seen later. Like I can't see it now, but I feel like I confirmed some of my assumptions about myself.
Good. And I'm sure, like you said, once you return home, and even many years from now, this experience will continue to be with you, and you'll always reflect on this experience and how you grow from it.
Exactly.
Good. And what do you think people that come from different disability cultures than the U.S., what do you think they can do to perhaps increase their independence before they come to the U.S.? So maybe to make their transition a little bit smoother, or so they're not too fearful of it?
I think they should understand that you can be independent in everywhere, because most of people say, okay, in Turkey, how can you be independent? You can be independent if you are determined. You should be able to say people that I can do that myself. Doing that would increase their confidence, and they will be very, very happy to do that.
Well, Erdem, this has been really nice to hear from you and hear from your ideas and your experience here in the United States at Stanford. And I wanted to end with your ripple effect message for our listeners, and specifically for other international students that may fear coming to the U.S. because of the level of independence they think that they'll have to have here in the United States.
In US, there are a lot of different cultures, a lot of different worlds, like in the world general. And it is in your hands not only to benefit from the combination of these cultures, but experiencing those cultures and telling these different cultures, this combination to other people in your environment to benefit.
Thank you for your ripple effect message and your time today, and we hope a lot of international students listen to this and feel more empowered to come here for their studies, research, or internships.
Thank you.
I'm Monica Malhotra, your host for Ripple Effects, Travelers with Disabilities Abroad. Thank you for listening, and make sure to visit us at miusa.org to learn more about Mobility International USA and our mission to advance disability rights and leadership globally.